Susan's fingers clawed at air as her husband's hands released her shoulders. For one impossible moment, she hung suspended above Seoul's glittering skyline, 6 months pregnant, 20 stories high. Then gravity claimed her. She fell. Wind screamed past her ears. Her life didn't flash before her eyes. Only one face appeared in her mind. Marcus. The man she'd left behind in Lagos 3 years ago. The billionaire who'd begged her to stay. The one who'd promised he'd always catch her. Her body slammed into something. Not concrete. Not death. Fabric. A construction safety net that shouldn't have been there, stretched between buildings for renovation work she didn't know existed. Susan gasped, her hands instinctively covering her belly as the net swayed violently. Above her, 20 stories up, her husband Jae-sung stood on their balcony, his silhouette dark against their penthouse lights. He'd actually done it. He'd thrown her off their balcony. If you're ready for a story of betrayal, redemption, and a love that refuses to die, hit that subscribe button now. Drop a comment telling us if you've ever gotten a second chance at something you thought was lost forever, and let's dive into Susan's impossible survival. Security guards rushed toward the net, voices shouting in Korean. Susan's whole body shook. She was alive. Her baby was alive. But nothing else made sense. Strong hands helped her down, carefully, urgently. Someone called an ambulance. Someone else was already on the phone with police. "I'm fine," Susan kept saying, though she wasn't sure it was true. "My baby? Someone check my baby." At the hospital, doctors swarmed. Ultrasound, examinations, questions she could barely process. But the heartbeat on the monitor was strong. Steady. Her daughter had survived. Susan wept with relief, her hands pressed against the small swell of her stomach. "Mrs. Park, the police need to speak with you," a nurse said gently. Susan nodded, numb. Mrs. Park. She'd been Susan Okafor before. A marketing executive in Lagos, successful, independent, full of dreams. Then she'd met Jae-sung at a business conference. He'd been charming, attentive, different from Marcus, the billionaire ex-boyfriend whose wealth had intimidated her. Jae-sung had seemed normal, grounded. He'd courted her for 6 months before proposing. She'd said yes, thinking she was choosing a simpler, safer love. She'd been so wrong. The marriage had been perfect for exactly 3 months. Then Jae-sung's mask had slipped. The charm became control. The attention became surveillance. He monitored her phone, her friends, her every movement. When she got pregnant, it got worse. He accused her of cheating, claimed the baby wasn't his despite the paternity test. Tonight, he'd found her looking at old photos on her laptop. Photos that included Marcus at a company event from years ago. "You're still in love with him," Jae-sung had screamed. "You wish this was his baby." "That's insane. I haven't spoken to Marcus in 3 years." "Liar." He grabbed her, dragged her to the balcony. Susan had fought, but he was stronger. "If I can't have you, no one will." Then he lifted her over the railing and let go. The police officer was kind but thorough. Susan told her story, her voice mechanical. They'd already arrested Jae-sung. Attempted murder. The security net had been installed that afternoon for building maintenance on the floor below. A coincidence that had saved her life. "Is there someone we can call for you?" the officer asked. "Family?" "A friend." Susan's family was in Lagos. Her friends in Seoul had been slowly cut off by Jae-sung's jealousy. She was alone in this country, pregnant, nearly murdered. She had no one. Except, "There's someone," she whispered, giving them a number she'd memorized but never called. "Marcus Adeyemi. He's in Lagos, but he'll come. Tell him Susan needs him. He'll come." 3 hours later, Susan was moved to a private room. She'd just closed her eyes when the door opened. She expected a nurse. Instead, Marcus stood there, his tall frame filling the doorway, his face a mixture of rage and terror and desperate relief. "Susan." Her name broke from his lips like a prayer. She started crying. Couldn't stop. Marcus crossed the room in 3 strides, gathering her carefully into his arms, mindful of her belly, holding her like she was made of glass and also like he'd never let go. "I'm here," he murmured into her hair. "I'm here." You're safe now. I've got you. How are you here? Lagos is 8 hours away. I was already in Seoul. Business meeting. His voice was rough with emotion. When the police called, I was 20 minutes from the hospital. Susan, when they told me what happened, he pulled back to look at her, his hands framing her face. I thought I'd lost you. Again. Susan touched his face, this man she'd walked away from because his wealth had scared her, because she'd thought simple was safer. Marcus, whose eyes held 3 years of longing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was making the right choice. You have nothing to apologize for. His thumb wiped her tears. Nothing. Tell me about the baby. The doctor said she's okay. She's strong. Like her mother, they said. Susan managed a weak smile. 6 months along. A girl. Something fierce flashed across Marcus's face. And her father just tried to kill you both. He's not her father. Not in any way that matters. Susan's hand covered her belly protectively. He never wanted her. He only wanted to control me. Marcus's jaw clenched. He'll never touch you again. I promise you that. Over the next 3 days, Marcus proved his promise. He hired the best lawyers in South Korea. He moved Susan to a secure hotel suite with private security. He sat with her through police interviews, held her hand during nightmares, and never once asked for anything in return. On the 4th day, Susan's lawyer delivered news. Jae-sung was being charged with attempted murder, domestic abuse, and assault. The evidence was overwhelming. But his family was powerful, well-connected. They were pushing for a plea deal, reduced charges. No, Susan said firmly. I want a trial. I want everyone to know what he did. Marcus squeezed her hand. It'll be hard. Public. Are you sure? I'm sure. Other women need to see that powerful men can face consequences. That we don't have to stay silent. Susan looked at him. Will you stay? Through the trial. Susan, I'll stay as long as you'll have me. Forever, if you let me. The trial began 6 weeks later. Susan's belly had grown, her daughter's kicks visible through her clothes. She sat in the courtroom, Marcus beside her, and faced the man who'd tried to kill her. Jae-sung looked smaller somehow, his arrogance stripped away by orange prison clothes. The prosecution presented their case methodically. Security footage from the building showing Jae-sung throwing Susan. Medical reports documenting previous injuries Susan had hidden. Text messages revealing his obsessive jealousy. Testimony from neighbors who'd heard his violent outbursts. When Susan took the stand, the courtroom was silent. She told her story clearly, without embellishment, letting the facts speak for themselves. Jae-sung's lawyer tried to shake her, suggesting she'd jumped, that she was mentally unstable, that she'd provoked him. Did I provoke him by being pregnant? Susan asked calmly. By existing? By not being perfect enough to satisfy his need for control. The lawyer had no response. Marcus testified about receiving the police call, about Susan's terror when he arrived at the hospital. She thought she had no one. But she's never been alone. I've loved her for 7 years. I'll love her for 70 more if she lets me. The courtroom murmured. This wasn't standard testimony, but the judge allowed it. Jae-sung's defense fell apart. His own family members testified about his violent temper, his history of controlling behavior with past girlfriends. The security guard who'd helped Susan from the net described finding her, pregnant and terrified, whispering prayers in Yoruba. The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. Guilty on all counts. 20 years minimum. No parole eligibility for 15 years. Susan didn't feel victorious. She felt tired. Sad for the life she'd thought she'd have, grateful for the life she still had. As they left the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions. Marcus's security cleared a path, but Susan stopped. I want to say something, she told Marcus. He nodded, stepping back to let her speak. Susan faced the cameras, one hand on her belly. I came to Korea believing I was choosing a safe, simple love. Instead, I found myself trapped in a nightmare. But I survived. My daughter survived. And I want other women to know that it's not your fault. The abuse is never your fault. The control, The violence, the jealousy, none of it is because you did something wrong. It's because he chose violence over love. And you deserve better. You deserve safety. You deserve to be loved without fear. Don't wait until you're being thrown from a balcony to leave. Leave at the first sign. The first raised voice. The first time he makes you feel small. Your life is worth more than any relationship. The cameras flashed. Marcus's hand found hers, squeezing gently. That night, in the hotel suite, Susan finally broke down. The adrenaline that had carried her through the trial evaporated, leaving her shaking and exhausted. Marcus held her on the couch, letting her cry, not trying to fix anything, just being present. "I feel so stupid," she sobbed. "I left you because I thought your money would complicate things. I thought Jaesung was simpler, safer. I chose so wrong. You chose based on the information you had." He lied. He manipulated. "That's not on you." Marcus's voice was gentle but firm. "And Susan, you didn't leave me just because of money. You left because you weren't ready. You wanted to prove yourself independently first. That's not stupid. That's brave. Was it worth it? Nearly dying? My baby nearly dying? You're asking the wrong question. The question isn't whether leaving me was worth this. The question is what you want now. Because Susan, I meant what I said in that courtroom. I love you. I've loved you through 3 years of silence. I'll love you through whatever comes next. But only if that's what you want. Don't choose me because you're grateful or scared or because you think you owe me. Choose me because you love me. Or don't choose me at all." Susan pulled back to look at him. Marcus, who'd dropped everything to fly to her side. Who'd sat through every court appearance. Who'd held her through nightmares and panic attacks and never once asked for anything but her healing. Marcus, whose love had been constant even when she couldn't see it. "I do love you," she whispered. "I think I never stopped. I was just too proud to admit I'd made a mistake leaving you. It wasn't a mistake. It was your journey. And it brought you back to me." He kissed her forehead. "But I need you to be sure. I need you to choose me when you're strong, not when you're broken." "Then ask me again in a month," Susan said. "When the trial is over and the nightmares fade. When I'm standing on my own 2 feet. Ask me then." Marcus smiled. "It's a date." The month passed in healing. Susan moved into a beautiful apartment Marcus helped her find, separate from his hotel. She started therapy, working through the trauma. She reconnected with her family in Lagos, video calling her mother daily. She prepared for her daughter's arrival, buying clothes and furniture, building a nursery. Marcus visited often but never pushed. He brought food, helped assemble baby furniture, sat with her during ultrasounds. He met her family via video call, charming her mother and making her father laugh. He proved, day after day, that his love wasn't possession. It was partnership. 1 month after the trial, Susan went into labor. It was fast, intense, terrifying. Marcus held her hand through every contraction, wiped her forehead, breathed with her. When her daughter finally arrived, screaming and perfect, he wept. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "Just like her mother." Susan named her Ada, meaning first daughter in Igbo. Ada Okafor, reclaiming her maiden name. When the nurses finally left them alone, Susan looked at Marcus, who was staring at Ada with wonder. "You said to tell you when I was ready," Susan said softly. Marcus looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "Are you?" "I'm ready." "I love you, Marcus. Not because you saved me, but because you let me save myself while standing beside me. Not because I'm grateful, but because you're the best man I've ever known. Not because I'm scared to be alone, but because being with you feels like home." She shifted Ada in her arms. "So yes, I choose you. I choose us. If you still want me." Marcus moved to the bed carefully, wrapping his arms around them both. "I've wanted you every day for 7 years. I'll want you every day for the rest of my life." He kissed her softly. "Will you marry me, Susan? Not because you have to, not because you're scared, but because you want to build a life together." "Yes," Susan laughed through tears. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Marcus pulled out a ring box from his pocket. Inside was the same ring he'd tried to give her 3 years ago. Simple, elegant, perfect. "I've been carrying this since the day you left. Just in case fate gave me another chance." Fate threw me off a balcony and caught me in a net, Susan said as he slid the ring on her finger. I think fate is dramatic. Fate knew I'd be here. I'll always be here to catch you. Ada chose that moment to start crying. Marcus laughed, carefully taking her from Susan's arms. May I? Susan watched Marcus hold her daughter, this man who loved her child already like she was his own. You're her father now, if you want to be. The man who raises her, protects her, loves her. That's what makes a father. I want to be, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. If she'll have me. She already loves you. I can tell. Susan smiled. She stopped crying. They brought Ada home to Susan's apartment, but within a week, they'd moved into Marcus's penthouse. Not because Susan needed rescuing, but because they were building a family. Marcus officially adopted Ada 6 months later. The paperwork was complex, but his lawyers were excellent. A year after the balcony, Susan stood on a different balcony, this one safe, with Marcus's arms around her and Ada playing at their feet. Seoul sprawled below them, the same city where she'd nearly died, now the city where she'd found herself again. Do you ever think about what would have happened if the net hadn't been there? Marcus asked quietly. Every day, Susan admitted. But then I think about what did happen. I survived. I found my strength. I found my way back to you. Maybe the net was always there. Maybe I just had to fall to find it. That's very poetic. I'm feeling poetic. It's our wedding tomorrow. Marcus spun her to face him. Having second thoughts? Not even for a second. You. I've been ready to marry you for 7 years. Tomorrow can't come fast enough. He kissed her, soft and sweet. Thank you for giving me another chance. Thank you for never giving up on me. Susan looked at Ada, who was babbling happily. For giving us a chance. The wedding was small, intimate. Susan's family flew in from Lagos. Marcus's family embraced her completely. Ada was the flower girl, toddling down the aisle dropping petals everywhere. When Susan walked toward Marcus, she wasn't thinking about Jaesung or the fall or the pain. She was thinking about second chances. About falling and being caught. About choosing love when you're strong enough to choose anything. I was so scared of your wealth once, she told Marcus during their vows. I thought it would overshadow me, make me small. But you never used it to control me. You used it to protect me, to give me space to heal, to support my independence. You gave me everything I needed to become strong enough to choose you freely. That's the greatest gift anyone's ever given me. Marcus's vows were simpler. I loved you when you left. I loved you when you called. I loved you when you were broken. I loved you when you healed. I'll love you in every version of yourself you become. You're my always, Susan. Forever. They kissed as husband and wife while their families cheered and Ada clapped her chubby hands together, not understanding but feeling the joy. Later, at the reception, Susan's mother pulled her aside. Are you happy, my daughter? Susan looked across the room at Marcus, who was dancing with Ada, making her giggle. I'm more than happy, Mama. I'm free. I'm loved. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Even after everything that happened? Especially after everything that happened. I fell, Mama. But I was caught. And now I'm flying. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in second chances and love that never quits, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to our channel for more stories of survival, redemption, and unexpected happy endings. Drop a comment sharing a time when life knocked you down but you got back up stronger. Susan's story reminds us that sometimes we have to fall to learn how to fly, and the right person will always be there to catch us. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late for a new beginning, and that surviving is just the first step toward thriving. We'll see you in the next story, where love conquers all.